The world has changed. The world of business has changed. What I'm seeing out there now is a leveling of the playing field. There's a leveling of the playing field between small businesses and large, and there's a leveling of the playing field internationally. And what I'm seeing is that the organizations that are truly winning all have the same focus. And it's almost nothing to do with what you did in the past. It's all about your focus for the future. Whether you're a commercial business, a not-for-profit, a charity, or a member association, all winning organizations have the same focus, and it's on what I call the 4 fundamentals of business. So what I'd like to do this morning is get up there in the helicopter, get up there and look at the big picture of how to succeed in the new game of business. I've got to share with you, this is absolutely true. A little while ago, I was speaking to about 800 people, and at this point, a guy in the audience stood up and he said, excuse me, but that helicopter's a hooey and the noise is an Apache. I mean, there's someone really focused on the detail, right? So no helicopter experts here today, please. So, 4 fundamentals of business. What's number 1? Well, it's no longer good enough being good at what you do. It's no longer good enough being outstanding at what you do. These days, quite simply, you've got to be exceptional at what you do, and absolutely everywhere you do it. So let's have a look at an exceptional organization. What's the biggest drinks brand in the world, please? Anybody? We've got lots of drinks companies here today. What's the biggest drinks brand, please? This is interactive. This means you speak as well as me. Just to explain, biggest drinks brand? Coca-Cola. Sir, I do apologize. You're now a bank manager. I'm ever so sorry. 15 years ago, I come along, I say, Mr. Bank Manager, I've got this brilliant idea. I want to take on Coca-Cola head on. Give us some money. What do you say? No, I thought you might. Now have a look at this. These are some figures I've put together. They are the retail price per gallon of various liquids in the USA. So here we go. Gasoline is about $4 a gallon. Coke's about $5 a gallon. Evian water is $10 a gallon. So if you're running Evian water in New York, you're going to be ringing Paris, aren't you? Give us a bonus, give us a bonus. Look how clever I am. I am selling water at twice the price of Coke. Milk's about $12 a gallon. Budweiser, that's pretty well all water anyway, isn't it? That's about $15 a gallon. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just look at this. Just look at this. Red Bull is $42 a gallon. Started by an Austrian guy, the bank manager did say no, he borrowed a few thousand euros from his family. It's sold as a high caffeine drink. In reality, the caffeine content of 1 can of Red Bull is exactly the same as 1 cup of coffee. It's sold in 152 countries, and Coke and Pepsi are wetting themselves trying to compete. But why am I showing you this? Well, just imagine if Red Bull had done what the business schools would have told them to do. Going into America, hire one of the top consulting firms, Accenture or McKinsey or someone, give them, well, I don't know, $500,000. What would they have said? First thing they would have said was, don't even think about selling a carbonated drink in the USA unless it's in a standard US can. And by the way, set your prices just below Coke. Did they do that? Hell did they do that. They set their prices 8 times higher than Coke. Exceptional organizations set their own standards. Every company I've ever run, at some point or other, my accountant, my FD, my vice president of finance has come to me and said, look, boss, look at the margins we're making. They're 2.5% better than the industry average. They're 1% better than our biggest competitor. And I would always say, I'm not interested. We're not going to dumb ourselves down to the industry average. We're not going to set our standards by the competition. We will set our own standards. And that's what exceptional organizations do. But there's something else about being exceptional. And it follows on directly from what we've been hearing so far today. There's a whole new core competence that you need, from the very smallest business to the very largest. And it's all around technology, because new digital technology is arriving at eye-watering speeds. And what we need to be able to do is to assimilate that technology, to adapt it and adopt it, and to do that incredibly quickly. But what am I talking about? Let's just talk about 2 or 3 technologies. 3D printing. It's now pretty well universally recognized that the effect of 3D printing on the world is going to be greater than the Industrial Revolution. I like to think about 3D printing as being like a sliced loaf backwards. You lay down the slices of the loaf to build up the loaf. Initially, 3D printing just used polymers, plastics, but these days there's all kinds of stuff being 3D printed. Top left, those are titanium hinges on an Airbus A320. That's the longest 3D printed bridge in the world in Shanghai. I'm not sure about this one. This is a Spanish company, 3D printing chocolates. And the idea here is on Valentine's Day, you send your partner chocolates with your face on. Not sure about that. And body parts. There's now an on-demand medical printing service for all kinds of amazing parts of the body. But I know what you're thinking. It's for the techies. Nothing to do with us. It's for the techies. And yes, actually 3D printing is not new technology at all. It was invented 25 years ago. I'm an engineer by profession, and it was given to the engineers, and they called it rapid prototyping, and they said, thank you very much. And that technology has been hidden away in a silo for the last 25 years, a technology that we know is going to be more important than the Industrial Revolution, and we must never allow that to happen ever again, because any of this technology might find use anywhere in your organization. McDonald's, at this moment, are actively considering putting a 3D printer into every McDonald's restaurant in the world, because 3D printers are now cheap. You can buy one online for about £1,500. And what's this all about? Well, the idea here is you go in with little Johnny while he's eating his hamburger, they will 3D print a Happy Doll with his face on. That's about sales and marketing. It's nothing to do with the techies. I could introduce you to a Belgian insurance company who last year increased policyholders by 18% on the back of 3D printing. So we cannot assume any of this technology should go into a particular area of our business. It might find use anywhere. So let's talk about another one, something very mundane. What's that, anybody? What is it? QR code, yeah. And what does it do? Well, you point your smartphone at it, and it will take you probably to a website of some sort. And most business leaders in the UK I talk to say, yeah, we tried it. It doesn't really do anything. If you go to Japan, it's the universal means by which stuff is communicated. It's on everything. I took that in Oxford the other day. They're using QR codes there. That's an integral part of hiring one of these bikes. It's nothing to do with sales and marketing. That's just an operational activity. I actually had a new knee in hospital 3 years ago. The identity bracelet they gave me didn't have my name on it. It had a QR code on. In there were my entire medical records. Every time a doctor or nurse came near me, they checked with something like a smartphone who I was, and every procedure went in there. That's about operational efficiency. Using something, by the way, QR codes cost $0. I like $0. Microsoft may not, but I like $0. It's a nice figure. So maybe QR codes can find use in an operational area of your business. You cannot assume. You can't assume it's just for sales and marketing to handle as a technology. Mercedes-Benz, I have to mention them. They're the first car maker to put QR codes in the vehicle. And that's all about the emergency services. In the event of an accident, it tells them exactly where to cut the vehicle to minimize damage to the occupants. A friend of mine owns 7 pharmacies in South Wales, and in South Wales, doctors' prescriptions have a QR code on which has the drugs in there. And what he's done is he bought himself a robot dispenser. Now what happens is the prescriptions as they go into the pharmacies are sent to the robot dispenser. It works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, dispensing the drugs and sending them back to the chemist shops. Paul Maybury said to me after just 6 months, he'd halved his inventory and he had annual savings of £200,000. This is about operational efficiency on the back of something that costs nothing. But my question to you is, who's thinking like this in your organization? Who's thinking about using this stuff in unique ways? I visit Pakistan regularly, and in the city of Lahore, up until 3 years ago, they used to have 60,000 cases of dengue fever in a year, which is a pretty nasty stuff. And it's a bit like malaria. It comes from stagnant water and mosquitoes. Now it's down to just a handful every single year. And there is only one reason for that, an app that was developed locally called Clean Lahore. And it's not super sexy, it's not super complex, it's not super clever, but it does the job. Who's thinking like that in your organization? And I love this one. This is in Japan. Dementia patients go walkabout, don't they? And sometimes they forget where they are. So what they've done in Japan is they superglue onto the thumb of the dementia patients a QR code. They've told all the local occupants, if you come across someone who looks a bit confused, just use your phone, because every phone has a QR scanner on now, and bring them home. Isn't that remarkable use of the most basic technology? But it's that question again, who in your organization is thinking like that? Because this isn't the sort of project you'd put into the top of IT and it's work its way down. This is something that could come from anyone in your company. And are you enabling anyone in your company to come up with this sort of an idea that just might transform your business? When I wrote my latest book, which actually has the same title as today, I thought I'd better walk the talk. So the book is not a two-dimensional book, it's a three-dimensional book. There are QR codes throughout which take you to animations, they take you to white papers, they take you to videos. There's a free app that comes with the book which allows you to regularly do business health checks. It's a three-dimensional book. And I'll be honest with you, I'm really proud of the fact I've got something like 45 4- and 5-star reviews on Amazon. One of them says this is the future of books. Why have them two-dimensional when they could be three? What about you? Your sales literature, your operating manuals, whatever it might be, are they two-dimensional or are they three? And this is nothing to do with cost, because the cost is zero. It's just about someone thinking about it. Mercedes-Benz are the first car maker to say they're giving up owner's manuals. It's going to be replaced with an AR app. Are you thinking like that? Because this is nothing to do with cost. The cost of developing an AR app isn't a lot. It's just about thinking about it and what it might do for you and your business. Some work was done looking at improvements in learner retention using AR. Firstly, children learning English and maths. An unbelievable 18% improvement in learner retention. And then they looked at training motor vehicle mechanics, 13% improvement. I was speaking recently and there was a guy there who was running 3 power stations, and he said, this is what I've been looking for forever. Because at the moment we use our best operators to train the new people, and that means our efficiency drops. This is perfect. And he went away to develop an AR app. Again, are you thinking like this? Because this technology is there now, it's not tomorrow. So, the first thing we need to do, of course, is assimilate this stuff. How do we know it even exists? Well, there's an easy answer for that. We need millennials, because they get it. I think they have it beamed down to them. They get it. This was a report done by PwC looking at reshaping the workplace. They said the millennials are the first generation in history to have a better grasp of a key business tool than more senior workers. What does that mean for us? It means we need millennials in our organization, and we need them on the top table. We need to listen to them. Never again can we say you start at the bottom and work your way up. We need them on the top table, and it's one of the reasons why I'm seeing some small businesses running rings around big corporations, because they only have one table, they don't have a top table, and everyone looks around it, and they can see where this technology might find use in their business. Then you need to adapt it and then adopt it incredibly quickly because it'll already be out of date. Okay, what next in terms of being exceptional? Well, it's a brutal world, I'm afraid. If you want to be exceptional, you've got to have 9s and 10s everywhere. Talent has a choice these days. As you'll see later, there's going to be a war on talent worldwide between now and 2030. And talent, 9s or 10s, if they are surrounded by 6s, 7s and 8s, will walk. They will not stay with you. You need to have 9s and 10s everywhere in your organization. No compromises. Okay, so that was all about being exceptional. What's number 2 in terms of these fundamentals of business? Well, number 2 follows directly on what I've just been talking about. It's got to be a great place to work. People have a choice these days. People increasingly will not work for an organization. Talent will not work for an organization whose values they don't share. When you're interviewing talent these days, increasingly they will be interviewing you. They'll say, what are the values of this organization? Because I can't see them on your website. And if you can't answer, they'll walk. They would rather be unemployed than work for you. And if you can answer, the next question will be, and please explain how you walk the talk of those values day to day. And again, if you can't answer, they'll walk. Some research was done in the UK by Mori, asking, what do you want your employer to be like? A ginormous 88% said, I want to work for an organization who's committed to living to its values. 88%. The worrying thing is only 45% believe they actually were. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not good enough. That's simply not good enough. Another piece of research that was done that apparently rarely has been done before was they asked employees, what are the top 8 things you want from your employer in order of priority? What are the top 8 things? Number 1, I want to know what my role is. I want to know what success looks like for me, what gets me a pat on the back. We're all like children, we need to know the box that we're working in. I do not want a 49-page job spec from HR. I want my boss to tell me what gets me a pat on the back. Number 2 follows directly from what I was just saying. Number 2, I want to see my co-workers disciplined. I do not want soft management. It's unfair. That's the second highest priority. I want to be excited when I come to work. I spend more time awake at work than I do at home. I want to get up every morning and go, yeah, I'm really looking forward to today. Every day. I want praise. It's a basic human need. I want praise. I was really lucky when I first started out, when I first graduated. My first ever boss was an amazing guy, name of Arthur Shillito. And often, if I'd been in a meeting with Arthur and a third party, it might have been a customer or a supplier, often on my desk would appear a handwritten note, and it would say, Roger, thank you so much for your contribution to the meeting. I really appreciate it, Arthur. Young guy, my chest would go out, my shoulders would go back. There was nothing I wouldn't do for Arthur Shillito. And I'd just say to you, please, however much praise you've been giving, please give 3 times as much after today. We all need it. And it doesn't cost anything. Don't scare me. I was a bit worried about this when I first saw it because I guess my style was Dunkirk spirit, backs to the wall and all that stuff. So I looked into it some more, and what they were saying was, please don't scare us just for the sake of it. We get enough of that from the media, from the TV and the newspapers. You're running the business. When you're clear about what it is you want us to do, come and tell us then, but don't just scare us for the sake of it. I want to be impressed by my boss. I want autonomy. Back to the millennials, perhaps. It doesn't matter how young I am. It doesn't matter how inexperienced I am. Trust me. Do not micromanage me. Trust me. Give me autonomy. And finally, I want to be part of a winning organization, whatever that means. I want to go home of night and go, yeah, we're getting there, wherever there is. And you won't have missed the fact that money is not mentioned in those top 8 at all. But how does your organization rate on those? How good are you at those things? So what's number 3 then? Third fundamental of business. Well, never again can we assume customers are going to find us. It's too dangerous. Never again can we do that. We have got to constantly, mercilessly prospect for business. You know, the rule of thumb is whoever's responsible for selling in your organization should be spending at least 20% of their time prospecting. And my definition of prospecting is talking to people who have never bought from you, or let's say never bought from you in the last 3 years. 20%. That's a day a week. And if you want to grow, it needs to be more than that. Are they spending that sort of time? When I work with sales forces, I've got a really simple model I used. I call a sales management matrix. So really simple stuff. Here we go. Prospecting, yes or no. And on this axis, however you measure your salespeople, ahead of budget, behind budget. So a junior who's just joined you, by definition, everything they're doing is prospecting, and by definition, they're behind budget. Where you want them to move to, and indeed where you want a majority of your sales force, are stars. They're ahead of budget, and they are still prospecting. But you know what happens the same as I do, don't you? Oh, I'm too busy to prospect. I've got all these customer demands on me. I'm actually too important to prospect. They become cash cows. Just about every sales force I've ever worked with, the most revered members of the sales force are cows. They think they're God's gift to the world, but the reality is they have stopped prospecting. Second largest customer moves to China, third largest goes bust. Now what? Now they're dogs. Now they're really in trouble. And this is brutal stuff. There are only 2 choices for a dog. He or she either learns how to be a junior or leaves the company. That's it. When I work with sales forces, the best thing I can do is to get them themselves to come up with a Post-it note and say where they are. Funny though, I can't do this in the States. If I do that in the States, they're all stars. It's weird that, isn't it? This was a client of mine, and that's where they all said they were. I said, is that good news or bad? And they said, it looks pretty bad to us. And I said, I don't see it like that, because just imagine if you could get those juniors across to stars, and you could get these cows all back up to stars, just think how much better your business would perform. But I have to say to you, my experience is very, very few sales managers or sales directors even think like this, because, of course, this is a people management job. Each of these people you have to deal with in a different way. It's a people management job. Okay. Where next? Well, Microsoft, a little while ago, said something that I think is really fundamental. Their research was showing that in an increasing number of sectors, market sectors, 85% of the sale has been completed by the time the client first makes contact with the company. 85%. What does this mean for us? Well, this is my take on it, and see if it makes sense for you. I mean, if we're talking about this discovery process, you're after something, whether it's B2B or B2C, what's the first thing we do these days? I could see you mouthing the words out loud, sir. Google it. Thank you. You Google it. There's some recent research that's been done in the UK, B2B and B2C, 85% of us Google. So what you've got to do, ladies and gentlemen, is own your Google page. What do I mean by that? If I type into Google whatever it is the tightest term that you can use to find what you do, you must appear on the screen, not just on the first page. If I've got to scroll down, I won't do it. You've got to appear on that screen, otherwise you've lost me. I work incredibly hard at doing that in my business. There's only me in the business, but I work incredibly hard at doing that. And increasingly, YouTube is even more important. You've got to do the same thing there. And once again, this is not about spending money. It's just about the thought process. And whose job is that in your organization? Is it IT? Is it marketing? Who is it? Because, of course, you've lost me and you didn't even know I was there if you don't appear on that screen. Assuming you do appear, they're then going to go to your website. And the first thing your website has to do is to reflect your personality. And my experience is most don't. Try reading your website out loud. Does it sound like your company? Is it in the third person? Are there photographs of people? Does it reflect your culture? Because it needs to, if again, you're not going to lose this potential customer. Next, they're going to go into your website, and you've got to say what it is you do in words of one syllable. Things that your 90-year-old granny would understand. For some reason, we always assume customers understand our jargon, our acronyms. They don't. Because there's new customers, there's new markets appearing all the time who need your services. It's got to be in words of one syllable. And then what's got to hit me between the eyes for me to stay on your website are your 3 value propositions, the 3 reasons why I should buy from you rather than the competition. Because if they're not there, I'm going to go and look at the competition. It's got to be compelling. I might then go further and look at your various products you've got, and the same applies. Each of your product groups needs to have value propositions, so I understand where each fits and why I should have that one rather than that one. What I would say to you is, in my humble opinion, your website, in terms of its importance, has gone up orders of magnitude, and that's probably only happened in the last 2 years. Orders of magnitude. Never again can it just be an online piece of sales literature. It is a fundamental part of you acquiring new customers if you accept Microsoft's research. You can't leave it to others. It's got to be on the top table. It's that important. So where am I going to go next? If I'm a hotel, where am I going to go next? If I'm looking for a hotel, where do I go? Did someone whisper it? Absolutely. I'm going to go up into cyberspace. And all that lot's got to be compelling. A very good friend of mine has got a large training business, and he works with the big banks. And he was telling me the other day, he just picked up a massive piece of work for him, £2.5 million from one of the banks you would know. And he said after he got the order, he spoke to the woman who gave him the business and said, "Why us?" And she said, "Well, that's a good question. I couldn't differentiate between you and one other company. I just couldn't differentiate between you. So in the end, I had a look at your personal LinkedIn profile. I looked at the personal LinkedIn profile of the CEO of the other business. You had more recommendations. That's why you got the work." Guys, you cannot ignore this stuff. It is incredibly important. And video is getting more and more important. You need to have a YouTube channel. Of course, you don't overtly sell on social networking, but that YouTube channel can demonstrate what it is you do. It can highlight your 3 value propositions. It can maybe answer questions before they're asked, and maybe even start to understand your customers. You should have hundreds of videos on your YouTube channel, and please don't use experts to make them. It's been proved if they look a bit amateurish on YouTube, people believe them more. And just while I think of it, it's been proved that a video testimonial is worth 10 times more than a written testimonial. Next time you have a client saying to you that they've done a good job, you've done a good job, just whip out your smartphone and say, "Would you mind saying that again?" That's all you need to do. Put your website on it, get it up on your YouTube channel. Who's thinking like this? I truly believe this is the most exciting time to be in business ever. Because it really is all about your focus for the future and very little about what you did in the past. I think we are in the most exciting times. I think then that's your 85% point. That may be them deciding that they want to go a bit further with you. Now, you didn't know I existed up to this point. What they're now going to do is they're going to press that Contact Us button on your website and ask some questions. some clarification. You've got to have an instant response. You've got to set very tight metrics for that, because all this lot has happened in nanoseconds. You've got to answer with a smile. You've got to answer the question directly, not BS. And by the way, just as an aside, in the, 14 years that I've been consulting, every client I've ever had, first thing I've done is to go onto the website, press the Contact Us button, send an inquiry. My stats are, over 14 years, only 6 out of 10 do I even get a reply from. And in marketing terms, I'm a hot lead. Please check your Contact Us button. It is even more important than it ever was before. And I think that's the 100% decision. Now, that may be to buy from you, it may be to put you on a vendor list, it may be to take matters further. But that seems to me that that's the world we are increasingly living in, no matter what your business is. And if you can get this right, it's going to massively differentiate you from the competition. Wow. Still talking about prospecting, there's a golden rule of business. Sell to people who've got money. Yeah? If your traditional customers haven't got any money, don't try and sell to them. And of course, the next best is to sell into a growing market. German firm of consultants did a massive piece of work looking at global trends through to 2030, and I've just picked out some headings here. The world population between now and 2030 is going to age 5 years. That is ginormous. What that says is, if you're not into healthcare, get into healthcare. If you're not into pharmaceuticals, get into pharmaceuticals. If you're not into hospitals, get into hospitals, because you will be riding the crest of a wave. Water demand is going to go up 53% worldwide. If that's a sector you could get into it now. Down here, NGOs, non-government organizations, are going to proliferate. They're going to go up threefold. If you're in a service industry, which I know a lot of you are, knock on their doors, because they're going to have money to spend. But it's that question again, I'm afraid. I guess the technical term for this would be strategic marketing. I just think it's common sense personally, but who in your organization is thinking like this? Or are they still trying to sell to the people you've always sold to? And by the way, we've talked about technology most of this morning. I said it's arriving at eye-watering speed. What this report says, you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet. This technology between now and 2030 is going to arrive incredibly quickly and diffuse around the world incredibly quickly. So that's an even greater reason for you to make sure you're on top of it and are using it for the benefit of your organization. And there we go. There's going to be a war on talent. Demand for talent will exceed supply worldwide. So that's a whole other agenda related to it's got to be a great place to work. So, what's number 4? Well, when I speak in Singapore or Hong Kong, I don't actually need to put number 4 up. You've got to focus on the bottom line. There is only one way to grow a business. There is only one way to grow a charity. There is only one way to grow a member association, and that's by generating something called profit that you reinvest in part or in whole into the business. There is no other way. It is incredibly healthy for your entire organization to be focused on the bottom line, because that's what protects everyone's jobs. That's what helps the business grow. We've talked today, we've heard today about KPIs, we've heard about productivity. I started out in manufacturing, and it may surprise you to know I don't dye my hair this color for gravitas. I actually used to be in manufacturing, and in those days there was a big formula called for productivity, and it was nonsense, it was garbage. Great long formula that all kinds of people were involved in, the trade unions and all kinds of people. And it sort of fell into disrepute. But you know what? I think it should be one of the very first KPIs on your monthly reporting pack for your business. And very simply, sales divided by the number of people in pounds. If you set a target to improve that by 10% every single year, you will never look back. That's how you can measure if you like, what Dynamic 365 Business Central is doing for you, because it's all about productivity. Now, people say to me, well, it shouldn't be sales, it should be gross margin or net margin, and it should be per pound of payroll. That's fine. But the important thing is it's really simple, that everyone can understand it, and you never change it. But believe me, ladies and gentlemen, if you set a target of improving that 10%, you will never look back in your business. Now let's talk price. If you're in the commodity business, you sell on price. They are the only people who sell on price. Budget airlines sell. By the way, did you hear that the other day? O'Leary of Ryanair said, I heard him on Radio 4, wants to charge for children and disabled people. And the interviewer more or less said, well, you can't do that. He said, we don't want them. Well, he's probably accurate in terms of it worsens their productivity, but you can't say that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, they're in the commodity business. They sell at the lowest price, and everything they do is about understanding the profitability of every single transaction in their business. For the rest of us, and I suspect most of us in this room, what we are selling is perceived added value. Really important words, a perceived added value. So perceived added value and price. We have to assume that every buyer in the world is trying to do that to us. They're trying to commoditize us. They're trying to turn us into a commodity. You know, nirvana for them is that they buy whatever it is we're selling at an internet auction. None of this relationship nonsense. Our job, and the job of our salespeople, is to do exactly the opposite, to turn the perception of whatever it is we're selling into a higher value-added product or service. I used to write into my sales guys' employment contracts. Very first item in their employment contract was, your job is to ensure, in the list of reasons why customers buy our product, price is below number 3. They hated it. I mean, I've had salespeople come to me and say, we should have the lowest prices, and I'd always respond in the same way and say, I don't understand that. If we had the lowest prices, we wouldn't need you. Well, you wouldn't, would you? It is a nonsense. Their job is to sell at a premium, and please, don't give salespeople price discretion. They'll give it away. It's too easy. And please, don't drop your trousers. Please don't discount. Your prices are where they are because of the value you give. The moment you start dropping your prices, what are you saying? We're not giving the value we thought we were? Don't do it, guys. If you've got to give something, give stuff. Give stuff that has a high perceived value to your clients, but costs you very little or nothing. I worked recently I had a group of recruitment companies. And I was thinking beforehand, I'm not sure with recruitment companies there's much chance of this, and we may have 1 or 2 recruitment companies here, but they do seem to be an industry that is predisposed to discount. You know, you sort of cough at them and they'll give you 20% off. So what I did was, I said what I've just said to you, and I had a flip chart, and I said, let's take 15 minutes. What are the things we can do? And we had 2 pages of stuff. The one I remember was one of these guys said, he said, I pay an annual license to do psychometric tests, and it's not testing, it's not per client, per person, it's just an annual license. He said, next time I'm asked for a discount, it would be very easy for me just to say, how about I do a psychometric test on every candidate? It wouldn't cost me a penny. I spoke at a workshop in Bath a little while back, and it's a group of CEOs, and there's like a chairman who chairs it. And he rang me back a couple of weeks later, and he said, a couple of months later, he said, I thought you'd like to know, Roger. There was a guy in there who, he said his business, I can't remember exactly what his business was, but they get contracts, £3-4 million contracts. And he said just after the workshop, one of their standard customers came in and sent them an inquiry, and he said they normally give them 20% discount. And they were about to do that, and he said, oh, just a minute, let's just put some effort in and just see if we can find stuff. And he got a little group of 3 or 4 of them together. They spent 2 hours just thinking of what they could give rather than money. They picked up that contract without 1 penny of discount. It just takes a bit of effort, guys. Anyone here not good at what they do? No, of course not. Of course you're good at what you do. In fact, you're probably remarkably good at what you do. And if you are remarkably good at what you do, you deserve higher prices. You need that culture to go throughout your entire organization. And let me ask you a question. If you put 1%, just 1% on your prices tomorrow morning, would you lose any customers? Because if you do, there's something about price that does not apply to anything else. It goes straight on the bottom line to reinvest in the growth of your business. Sometimes I get CEOs say to me very proudly that they never lose customers, and I always reply the same way. Your prices are too low then. They must be. You should always be losing customers. Of course you should. The job of running a business is about taking risks. If you're on the board of a company, your job is to take risks, and I would say to you the risk of putting your prices up 1%, 2%, 3%, assuming you're good at what you do, is probably almost zero. And I'm talking net prices. Stop giving people discounts just because they exist. Don't do it anymore. End of lecture. So there we go. 4 basics of business. So if you were to mark yourselves out of 100, what score would let you sleep at night? What score's acceptable? Now, running a business, as we all know, is all about trends. It's what's really important is whatever your score is today, that you check again in 3 months and it's moved forward a notch or two. And by the way, the free app that comes with the book will allow you to do that regularly. But what would you score out of 100? I'll leave that with you. So, I like to get in this helicopter of mine and try and draw a little model of businesses of the future and see if this makes sense for you. Winning organizations of the future, indeed winning organizations of today, have got to be incredibly agile. We've talked a lot about new technology arriving at eye-watering speed, but equally new markets are arriving incredibly quickly. You've got to have millennials. Don't even think about not having millennials in your organization. I was really interested that Bryony was talking about SNCF earlier, French State Railways. They recognize this. They set up something called TGV Club. They put a guy, a 30-year-old from Yahoo in charge, said he could recruit 30 people. None of them could be over the age of 30. And they were given permission to go anywhere in SNCF and use the latest technology. And within the first 2 years, they had done the most amazing things. In my book, rather mischievously, I've put that every organization needs a CTEO, a Chief Technology Exploitation Officer, and when they reach the age of 30, you fire them. But I'm more than half serious. This is the world we're now living in. I think it's incredibly exciting. And you can't have silos. This is why I'm seeing some small businesses beating large corporations, because they're silos. This technology, this whatever, is for them. It's for sales and marketing, or it's for design, or whatever. It's not true. It's got to stay on the top table. Somehow it's got to stay on the top table to see how you might be able to exploit it. That Belgian insurance company, somehow they did that to recognize 3D printing could get them more policyholders. Who is thinking like that in your organization? You need performing teams. You need teams that are more than the sum of the parts. And in terms of leadership, you need what's called adaptive leadership. Adaptive leadership is assuming things are going to change, follows directly on what we were talking earlier. Change has to be standard, has to be normal now. And from the leader's point of view, you've got to be up there in that helicopter of mine, looking over the horizon, looking for what's about to change, because it certainly is going to. And then finally, I think what you need is to develop what I would call an enterprise culture. And this is where everyone in your company is given permission to and sees it their job to come up with stuff like, why not stick a QR code on the thumb of dementia patients? You can't assume it's all going to come from the top. It won't come from the top. I heard one of the founders of Spotify the other day give a speech. It was fascinating. The whole of Spotify works on that basis. Everyone is in a team of people, nothing to do, there's no hierarchy, there's not even a leader of that team. And that's how they develop all the stuff they develop. But it also means you need to have a culture of a toleration of failure, because it won't all work. And that's counterintuitive for an awful lot of us. Won't all work. Maybe 9 out of 10 doesn't work, but number 10 is that gold nugget that transforms your business. Somehow, you've got to enable that to happen. Wow again. So let me finish today with a little word about business leadership, because for me, there are 3 things as business leaders we need more than anything else. And they're all heart things, they're not head things. You've got to believe. If you do not believe in what you're doing, you'll get sussed. You'll get sussed by your employees, you'll get sussed by your financiers, you'll get sussed by your customers. You've got to believe. And you've got to believe with a passion. You know, passion is not something you leave at home. It should be oozing out of the pores of your skin. Passion is infectious. People follow people with passion. But probably the most important of all is courage. We've said businesses only move forward if you take risks. You've got to have the courage, maybe to put your prices up. Maybe it's the courage to adopt some new technology. Maybe it's the courage to look at a new market. But if you can focus mercilessly on those 4 fundamentals of business, I guarantee you'll win. Thank you. Thank you.